Hello, world. It's the PocketGamer.biz Podcast. I'm your host, Peggy Anne Salz, Brian Baglow, doing amazing things as you would expect from my co host. And we're doing amazing things on this show because we're going to look at another side, another facet of this multifaceted gaming industry. Ad-mon, right? Doing ad-mon right is more important than ever, but you have to do it without breaking your game. So it's tough. We need a Sherpa. We need someone who's going to guide us, someone who's been there, done that, and have seen it from both sides. Well, if they have seen it from all sides, that's a bigger plus. And that's what we have with my guest. She has done it. She is Senior Director, Ad Monetization and Partnerships at Pixel United. But in addition, there's a lot of other hats she's had. Her colleagues call her out as a master at monetizing games through a broad range of advertising strategies. So she loves formats, new formats. She loves techniques. New is exciting. And that's why I'm so excited to have you, Kelly Kang. It has been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while and I definitely have missed you. I feel like we need more of this. So, yes, it's been great.
Yeah, it's an encore almost. When was the last time we chatted? It's also a few years back, and so much has happened in your world.
Yes, it has. It's a never-ending world. It's just keeps going on. When I just feel like I can breathe for a second, there's something new. So, I am excited to talk about it all today.
So it's quite a track record. I looked at what you've been doing, where you come from, director of Admon, obviously, at Pixel United, before that Big Fish, before that Glue Mobile, before that Zynga. So quite the top names. Some tough jobs as well. You were supporting brand sales. I was reading what don't you do, I think is the bigger question. What's the biggest part of your job? You have to own, lead rewarded campaigns, support brand sales, build teams. What's the one part of your job that you didn't expect you'd have to do, Kelly?
What to be honest, the one major part is I actually didn't imagine that I had to make presentation deck all the time. I thought that was never on my job requirement. That was never on my anything. But I think being on the admin, a lot of people kind of look at the same thing as a UA manager admin, just same thing on a different side, but little more different as in terms of we actually need to work with the internal game teams, including the external ad vendors, ad networks, and all of that. So that requires a lot of the deck making. So I'll going back to it. One I didn't expect is making decks every day, every single day. I'll say half of my job is making decks.
So what are you doing? You're like presenting to the internal team and external partners, and you're just like saying, this is my strategy. This is what I'm doing. Let me show you so we're all on the same page. Is that what it's about?
Yes, that is definitely a big part of it. I don't like the term sales, but I call myself internal sales. So when we work with admin team works with external vendors or ad networks outside of it, bringing in all these great advertisers internally, we actually have to sell it to the game team because we as an admin team don't own any of the games. What we do is we bring all this great information from externally, like ad networks, pitch us with all this great ad format, advertisers are coming in. We now have to do the same. We have to pivot that into our own internal deck. And every game focuses on different things. So we have to make a separate deck for each game, how they're focusing on it for the one ad format that Ad Network just told us about. So we are kind of pitching internally, going every game team saying, look at this new thing. We are kind of internal sales pitching it to them. This is great, but also it comes with the 3 month of work. So can we put it on here and here, looking at your roadmap? So it's kind of like internal pitching, internal sales.
And I've heard those stories. I mean, they're great ad formats. I love some of the cooler ones. I was a great fan of the scrollable ads when they first started, and that was in publishing. So it was publishers, it was the New York Times and others that did that. But this is publishing, and you have to embrace new ad experiences, and they were cool. Yeah, difficult because we weren't quite yet responsive, but very cool. Ad formats. Is it really such a stretch, or do you find that the internal teams are like, you know what? We do have to get more out of our games. So we are going to reconstruct, rework, think this through so that your ad format that you're so excited about that you can definitely sell can fit in the game?
I want to say 50-50, but the reality is 80-20. 80 meaning they're not going to buy it. So it's only about 20% they'll buy it. That's only if I truly believe in this ad format and that I could sell it internally. That's 20% that game teams will buy it.
So what is it, Kelly? Is it just like it's just heavy lifting? I mean, you would imagine, wouldn't it be possible if the game is solid that you could just say, look, can't we develop this? Can't we put in some no code or something and just do this really fast and do it a little bit less?
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on it. I think that's what we should do and how we should do it. But I think the major thing is, like you said, is the time constraint, resource, and going back to every game, even though it looks like there's a live ops coming out like on a weekly, on a weekend, there's cool this event that they're doing live ops. That takes a lot on the game team's development cycle. So first to do that weekly, that's already done in a weekly. So roadmap's already full for a year and a half in the future. So now we are trying to squeeze it in there and say, give us 2 weeks on here. But it's not just that 2 weeks. I mean, I always pitch it. So hopefully my game team's not listening. I always say 2 weeks, but that's just the integration. After that, it's like we have to QA it. Is this gonna break the other stuff because we never done this ad format? And how are users, kind of reacting to it? So there's a lot more goes into it. So I think that's the one side that ad networks and outside people don't see. It is internally ad-mon is how it's getting integrated, and that why is it so hard to sell or get integrated in new ad format is because we have a lot of people to sell it to.
Thinking through the business model, and now that we're more focused on midterm and long term, and and LTV really truly matters, you're thinking
Yeah,
about how do I get the most out of my audience? And if you do it properly, more and more
yeah.
publishers are telling me at events, it's like, yeah, we used to think there was a problem with the game experience, but do it right, it's not interruptive. Do it right, it's going to be fine. And do it right, we're all going to make money, because isn't that what it's about? It's about driving revenue and being able to forecast with some certainty what's going to happen to your studio in the future.
I 100% agree. I think doing it right is the hard part, and that's when people talk about, oh, I Kelly can be more transparent. I'm more direct. I think I'm a little direct, so I like to kind of give them all the pros and cons before we start integrating. So I'll tell the game teams, hey, 100% fully transparent. Here's all of this, but cons can be this. So you do have to look at it both ways, but I do think that because it's not common practice in the ADMA, meaning we like to push for, hey, this is a great next new thing, but we don't really talk about the negative side of it. So a lot of people have hard time kind of believing in like, well, other people say this is a great thing. I'm like, it could be a great thing, but I can't guarantee you that. So that's like kind of one thing, we continue to have to work with. So and kind of going back to part of my admin job is partnership, relationship building. I have to build a relationship with the game team, partnership with the game team, so that they know that whatever I say is actually, it's not false. I'm just literally telling you how it is. So yeah, building that relationship goes back to how can we get the new format in there. So it all takes, so going back to a cycle of, it takes more than a year. I would like to say, hey, within 3 months with the new person, I can get it in there. No, it's just taking a while to get to that point.
How do you do that, Kelly? I mean, I know you personally, so I can vouch that you are just yeah, you have an aura. You are a positive person. You could convince me to do things. If I hung out with you, I could totally see it. How do you convince your teams?
I think it's from the genuine, meaning I
Hmm.
that's one of the reason why if you look at my, I'm currently I'm at Pixel United. If you look at all of our games, I don't push for anything that I don't believe in or trust in. Meaning there's all these new ad formats coming out, and all these publishers, developer like to kind of try that out because it's new. I
Yeah.
I would love to say yes, I will push my internal team to do that, but I don't because I don't believe in it. So I think honesty goes in a long way. So I basically tell them, hey, here's a great business case. Do I believe in it? No, but I think you should try if you want your game to succeed one day. But I'll be very clear and upfront to them. So that's one
Okay.
thing is I think people will make understand that she will come to me with the business opportunity. If she doesn't believe, she'll say how it is. So I still don't believe in a lot of like forceful ad here and there. I think they could be done very minimally because
Okay.
I play a lot of mobile games and I get very annoyed. So I coming from just I guess a first person experience and I make sure my game team knows that or everyone knows that.
So you obviously are so embedded in this, Kelly. Could you, without name and blame, it's just important to understand like which ad formats you're not so excited about, or which ones that you don't see um, have lived up to the promise. I mean, I remember a big deal about Playable. I'm hearing a lot about audio and others there, and then I was just reading the other day, they all have to be native now. We have to have native looking ads for our games. What are your thoughts there? Are there some formats or some techniques that stand out where you're like, yep, 2024 and beyond, if you can't do anything else, do this?
It's one thing I didn't expect to say it, but 2024, if you can only try one thing or retry one thing, I'll say overall. I know this doesn't come in that way. We'll all kind of talking about overall is so 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I am not really sure how long, but it's very long time ago. But I would like to say it's back. It's coming back, given that Offerwall is back here to use it. And kind of going back to a little bit of your question is I heard of all these different type of ad units like audio, all this native and we had native before, is coming back again. I'm sure it will fit great in certain type of games or apps or kind of webs, but I am quite not sure. There isn't enough data. I'm very data driven person. There isn't enough data to kind of go about it. So I'm gonna wait a little bit more for the get data to gather up. But until then, I know for a fact that overall works. So I'm going back to that. Um, and again, it is a very, very old format. So I know people might think, oh, yeah, why are you going back to that? How does this work? Let me tell you, it's not just me. It's just in a publisher world right now. We are going back to that. So if you see all this overall, I'm not even sure if actually the new ad-mon managers know what offer war is because they only heard of the really video interstitial. So offer war is, let me tell you guys, it's been 20 years, 10 years again. It's an old format, but user get to actually scroll down and they will kind of see what it is. And we are not forcing them to do anything. Users are choosing what they want on their own. So we kind of want to give users more freedom. Hey, you want to pick something all out of all of this? You go ahead. If not, scroll through it. Don't do it. So we're giving them more options, and with all this kind of privacy changes, this doesn't get impacted because we're not actually targeting the users. So this is a great way of kind of going back to it. So if you haven't tried, I will say give it a try this year.
Privacy doesn't play a role here. It's just sort of like, yeah, bubbling things up. It helps with discoverability. I remember first time around, it really helped if you were doing sort of your in-house ads for games in your portfolio and in your family. Is that still the same way in sort of offer wall, you know, yeah, reboot, or is it a different offer wall? Because first time around, it was more like, I've got a lot of games. I'll just bring people to all the games I have. Always got to be careful you're not showing competitor games, but maybe that's not so important anymore because now we're just sort of happy to monetize. I don't know what's different, Kelly, about the offer wall this time around that it has you so enthusiastic.
I think, like you said, it's the Offerwall 2.0. So it's a little enhanced and better version. The first go round, we definitely use it more of an in-house. We already have 10 games. Let's bring them to the other different game to kind of go circle around within our network. These days, we use it more of a 99% in a different way. So meaning, hey, there's a lot more on the offer wall, wall of all these things. There's a lot more surveys. There's a lot more, great way to brands to get in there saying, hey, sign up for our Olay, sign up for our Starbucks, sign up for ABCD, E. So it kind of has all this thing a different way of our brands to kind of get in there. If not, some of the other games like competitor ads, yes, we don't like them, but we do see we are always kind of tracking our users what they're doing after, or kind of just looking at are they coming back, what's the churn like. They actually do come back. So I think they're downloading, they're using all of that to get coins within our game. So and we're that whatever currency we have within our game. So think of it as users are using it so that they can play our game longer. They want this more currency. They want more of this what we have internally. So I'll take that as a good thing. And I will say more than 50-60% is all brands now within Offerwall. So that's one of the reasons why I love Offerwall.
You do partnerships. You do them well. You have brands on your offer wall. Surveys are very interesting too, because I'm sure surveys brands want to understand, what do you think of product X, or, would you switch to product Y? So there's a lot coming together, but the brands are not there, maybe in Pixel United because you're there, fine. But everywhere else, they seem a little slow to the party. What's about the disconnect here? How do you explain that the eyeballs are there and the brands are slow?
I think that's a good question. I actually did about more than a year of tour, kind of going meeting all these agencies and brands to try to understand why they are not spending on mobile games or mobile itself, and what the hesitation is. A lot of the feedback I got was they think of our mobile as a very different mobile. They think it's a black box. We don't know all this. They also think, well, I don't know where my ads going. What if you put my ads or my brand next to something that I don't want? And so I was trying to educate them that it's not that anymore. Maybe it was that 10 years ago, 5 years ago, but it's no longer that. You get to pick where you want it to be. And you get to pick user segmentation as well as you wish. Or you will know exactly where your ads are. And their second thing was just a visibility. What we don't need any downloads. Most of them just want like the viewability. And we say we can actually track that. You can say 75% of 75% to 100%. You can target of those. So a lot of things were basically they have a different mindset of what mobile is or currently is. So they know what mobile was, but they don't know where mobile is now. And as we are the mobile industry is a very fast industry. So I think kind of keeping them up to date, which will take a while, because when I talked to them about a year ago, right now it's not the same as a year ago. So now I gotta go talk to them again. So I think that kind of is going around the circle. So somebody has to consistently be on top of them. And I think another thing is they're not familiar with all the metrics that we are currently using, that mobile's using. So they think some of them think it's a made up metrics. Never heard of it. It doesn't exist. And I'm basically saying, no, this is how you define it. And so we are looking at two different viewpoints of it. And I think you mentioned it in the beginning is like what they are talking about is, hey, they don't know where this is going. It's all kind of always comes back to it. They think it's a black box. So I think we have to get out there saying it's not a black box. You can pick and choose. But yeah, that's the hard part. And I think the relationship component.
Getting people's attention, brands' attention, agency attention, it's not a given. So is it go to the right parties, go to Cannes? Is that what happens? I mean, how do you get their attention? How do you get them to listen? And it starts with that opportunity, and then you build on top of that. But what are some tricks here? Because I was chatting with some people, and it's sometimes not the usual suspects in terms of technique and tactics.
Yeah, I think that is true. I tried going to the conferences. The one thing is at conferences they're there because they want to get something out of it. So we won't get much of a chance to talk to them because they have a whole list of what they want to do. So conference is, I think, great way to see them, meet them, kind of, hey, this is my face, kind of, showing them your face, but it's not too much of a deeper level. And like you just mentioned, it's not parties. That's where you actually connect with them. Obviously, don't talk about work when you're there, guys. So we're kind of more kind of building the relationship at the parties, just kind of casually just be yourself and kind of get to know that person. And then I will say it takes a bit, again, all the relationship partnership is not a 1 2 month, it's about 3 to a year, I will say, to build that partnership relationship.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you go to those parties, you get to know the person before you try to pitch, sell, or trying to convince them. You wanna understand what they do, what their issues are first before you start talking about yours. So I'll say listening is very important. So before you kind of talk about yours, just listen what they think of it, why they think of it the way it is, and then you can kind of go from there as in terms of what you think, how or what, tell them how the mobile is now versus what they think of it is. So yeah, going back to, I think party is a great example. I thought it was my secret, little secret sauce is I know I'm always at a lot of the conferences, but I'm also at a lot of the parties. Because that actually works. That's a great way to kind of meet people.
And parties at which events? I'm just curious because I was thinking Can, I wasn't there, and everyone's like, oh, next year you got to be there. I'm like, okay, next year I'm there. I get it. But there are others to go to as well where brands congregate. I used to be on the board of the Mobile Marketing Association. So it used to be, let's all do the Mobile Marketing Association events that you could get into, right? Because gaming companies aren't the brand
No.
realm. So they're different shows, they're different ecosystems. Where do you go?
A lot of the agency brands all so first thing, I'm sure most of people know, but for some people that don't know, is brands. When you say brands, we don't talk to brands directly. 99% of the time we talk to agencies, because brands go through agencies to buy it. Brands are more likely, think of it as they don't trust anyone, they will trust their own agencies only. So what you want to do is find out what agency is doing what brands, or who owns what brands. So that's one thing that you want to kind of start with. Next thing is, so going to all these, where do agencies go? Do they go to all these conferences? So they have their own conferences. So I will say the parties or bars near there at the conference night is the best is the party where it is. Most of the people all go to the same area, same bar, same partying. They tend to opt out of all these official parties just because they think it's too official, their work is already done. So that's kind of one thing to kind of think about is, hey, it's the natural way of meeting people. Going back to it is, yeah, so I was like, Kent definitely is a great party. But you want to go where more agencies are at if you want to get to know brands rather than mobile gaming, this mobile conferences.
That's one way to connect with them, but you also have to sort of, yeah, you have to bring value, is what I'm hearing more and more, even if it's just to the agency, not, going directly to the brands, as you said. But, it's a plus because if you can show that you share their sentiment, that you also frown on fake ads, which is very controversial in the industry currently. It's like, oh, we don't need to call them that. They're just, it's an icebreaker. It's not a fake ad. And the other thing is, of course, consent. Have your CMPs. It's a bonus, but then there's the upside and the downside. But I have heard people having great, great, great experiences and making more, generating more revenues because they are doing what's right. How do you see this, and what are your experiences? Have you seen that that's what the agencies are asking for?
Actually, that is what they want. Is, I know that is a really big topic, the fake ass or non-fake ass, whatever you want to call it. That is a big topic,
Icebreakers is what
but
I've heard.
but they do call it fake ass, just to be not
Yeah.
mobile, but agencies do call it fake ass. And that's one of the reasons, is this is one of the reason why I cannot trust mobile, because you guys make fake ass, you guys make something that's not there.
Yeah.
So it goes on and on from there. But I will say, yes, I am 70-30 on that topic. 70, I kind of align with where the brands are at, where the
Yeah.
agency is at. 30%, I can see it on from the other side as well, where we don't have to call it that. Maybe there's a better term for it. Um, And going back to the CMP, yes, brands and agencies all want that. They want everything more just protected. Whatever user, they want to give any options, whatever, options we can give to users because
Mhm.
that's what they believe in and that's what they think is fair. So I do believe in it, and I heard great things about CMP result. I
Mhm.
personally tested, and then it is great so far. I cannot say I'm on it all of it and all of the apps just because I'm sure you'll hear the other side is it's a lot of work. It's not a one day, 1 week kind of work. So it is a bit of a work. So that's taking some time, but if, when that's all done and done, I will say I think CMP is great. I think we should definitely. I know a lot of the conflict back and forth is basically, well, we are only giving to certain part. We are not needed. Maybe we'll just turn off ads in that area so we don't have to do it. It's the quick solution for it. But in
Mhm.
the long run, is that really helpful? I mean, I think that's great for a short term. You don't have
Yeah.
to integrate it. You don't have to put any time into it. Same thing for any other privacy stuff. Where whenever we get, as
Yeah.
mobile industry, we get a lot of privacy updates. I'll say it's a great short term just not to do it, but in a mid to long term, I will say that's gonna impact negatively. Like right now, I know it's hard, but I think it's better to get ahead of it and then get it integrated
Yeah.
and in that way users feel safer and now you could actually um, have and get more attractions from the brand or agencies brands as
Mhm.
well. So I would say it's a twofer. It's a half win and a win. Half it's only half win just
Yeah.
because you do have to integrate it. It's a lot of work. I'm very well aware of that. Yeah.
It's inescapable at some point. This is going to be the way you do business. And do you want to
Yeah.
be doing it under pressure, under time pressure, maybe also with shifts in your team and talent that you can't dedicate to testing CMPs? Maybe there's another thing coming down the pike and you'll need to
Yeah.
dedicate to that. What is your experience with CMP? I'm hearing a lot about you have to be very, very smart to get consent, and there's a lot of testing, a lot of thoughts there. You said yourself you've done some tests, you've seen an increase in revenue. So players will consent if you do it right. What have you learned or what can you share? Because I'm sure some of it's your secret sauce, Kelly, but maybe at a higher level, a way to get and ensure that you have consent, but you're not dedicating so much resource to it that at the end of the day, the numbers just don't jive.
I think that's a good question. That's something that we talked about a lot internally as well is one thing I believe in testing, meaning I believe in different type of users on each app. So even if you hear that, hey, other company did this, so we're gonna maybe go slightly about the same way as what they've done. I would say no. Try, I know it's a lot. Try it, test it out. Test out the different messaging, test out the different slightly different native formats or test out what you can. But like Peggy mentioned, or like you mentioned, please don't over test it. That's one thing I would like to say is we is in mobile gaming or in a mobile just generally we like to complicate things sometimes so we like to put it could be a two test three test but now we ended up being able 12 different variants and now everyone wants to test that they're like it's different though this and that from it's not and it's actually complicating users meaning you can be testing different type of little bit of different square with one more different so we like to test a lot of things as in this industry but please don't over test it over complicate things I will say test it with I don't know simple mindset so have like I will say probably two different messagings or if you want to test out the different type of creative feel free to do it but definitely don't bring in this 10 different ideas or that we have to 10 test out this 10 different things and what you'll hear from the user is users talk to each other within the same game they have their own like a forums they have their own Facebook pages they have their own Discord channel. They'll go somewhere and talk to each other. And they'll basically say, hey, I got this. And did you get this? And other person's like, no, I didn't get it. I got this thing. So they do share by seeing from my firsthand experience. So that's the one thing you want to come back to is don't overcomplicate it. And don't over test, but please do test, as in terms of just a simple mindset, as it just so you can say, I've tested it and this is a better result than that. But yeah, I don't recommend testing 10 different ways.
Brings me to an interesting aspect of your job, which is what is your job, right? Because it has changed. And I was chatting with some people, and they're like, and they are ad-mon managers. So I went to an event, it was an ad-mon day at Games Forum, and it was like, okay, so uh, it feels a little bit these days like it did for the UA managers. There was a time for UA where it was like, okay, we've got AI, we're set. Do we need a UA manager? What does a UA manager really do? Where does he, she bring value? And they're like, it feels like that in the ad-mon space, because the craft of, figuring out the waterfall, that's not what we need right now. We need other powers, other talents in an ad-mon manager. So what is it that you do, and where do you feel the craft? Where is the fun and the testing and the tinkering? Because yeah, waterfall's gone.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect question because we get that a lot basically from gaming people or just engineers saying, hey, you used to talk about waterfall, changing waterfall, working on waterfall, but we implemented the in-app header bidding or all of those things. So you don't do waterfall. So what do you do
What do
all
you
day? So we get that a lot. What do you do all day? Very candid. We get that a lot. So I am ready for this answer. So one thing is, I think we kind of talked about it throughout the whole interview today is the partnership relationship aspect of it. You cannot put that in an AI. You cannot put that in a kind of automated system. You need to build that trust, and that takes a human being to do that. So I'll say that portion of a partnership level, I need my team to kind of step up and be there day to day, kind of building the relationship. And a lot of the testing ideas are, if you ask the AI, if you ask the anything to kind of do it done, there's a lot more. They like to make it a little more complicated than it is. So we also want to start with the basics first. So when we do testing stuff, we need our human to be, hey, this is the behavior. Like I mentioned earlier, not all apps are the same. Even though you're in same genre, you have a different type of users. So
Mhm.
even though we have same type of game, we have to test it out differently, and we know our users. This game will behave certain way, other game behave a certain way. So we'll test based on kind of pivoting based on our user type. Lastly, and there's a lot more, is ad quality. I know this is a big,
Big,
big topic,
huge.
but very big topic. But ad quality, there is a lot of AI toolish or kind of stuff that trying to catch up all of it. It's not there yet. So we do have to manually go check. I have my team. I really apologize to my team, but I am very I will say I want ad quality to be not perfect, but nearly perfect. So because what we show is what users see.
Yeah.
So I want our users to know that we care what we show, and we are not related to all these things that we are showing you guys, all this bad ads. So what that means is, even though we have a system, we have a tool, I also have my managers, ad managers, going there manually to kind of check those ad
Mm-hmm.
quality. And yes, it is daily that I'm currently having them do daily. So it is part of that as well. Is I think one day we can be there. One day we'll be there, as in 80-90% of the ad quality will get, you know, all this, I don't know, automated, all this AI will be able to catch it, but we are still very far away from
Mm.
that. So all this ads will slip through. We only know some of the stuff, or proactively we can do it by talking to other ad managers. They say, hey, we saw this ad from this network. So now we'll go proactively go block it before it even happens to us.
Yeah.
So I'll say I all goes back to a partnership relationship, and goes back to some things that machine cannot do right now. Maybe in the future, that's a different story. But for now, it cannot do.
I
No.
want to stay on what you do also as part of your job, because just curious. Here we are, waterfall is gone. We're deep into bidding, in-app header bidding. It was supposed to be easier. It was supposed to give us efficiencies. You were supposed to make money. yet we're seeing lower ECPMs. I mean, is there a link? Because there's some people say, okay, it's because we switched to bidding and no floors are set anymore. And so it's just, that is what it is. But again, we were chatting before coming up here and in our prep, and we're like, well, hey, maybe it's just people are watching Netflix. So let's not be so hard on ourselves. I don't know. What's your take?
I think it's actually both. In the beginning, I was one of the person that was super excited about going to in-app header bidding before we went to in-app header bidding. I was a major supporter saying, I don't want my team to spend 3 hours a day managing waterfall. I think it'll be great, but obviously I didn't think through because now the whole thing is we cannot put a floor price. So that's can mean that can go both ways, meaning ad networks can come in higher because they want to beat the other ad networks. They can come in higher on their own. But the bad thing is, what if all ad networks are basically saying, because there's no floor, let's come in a little bit lower, and that's what every ad network is doing. So I do think that there is that big component of like us going into in-app header bidding is impacting our ECPM. Uh, Also, the second thing is I think people are more out there physically versus on their phone and playing or being on the app more. I mean, I myself is doing that. I am doing that, and my family is doing that, and my friends are doing that. So I think it kind of proves that also I'm on a lot of the different apps. I'm on a lot of the I didn't think that mobile gaming will be a competitor to streaming apps or kind of shopping apps. I thought we are completely different. Like, yeah, they're all separated. But I don't think we are because I'm spending less time on. I mean, I used to play a lot of games. I'm spending a lot less time on games now. I'm actually, shopping on the apps. I'm actually spending the time watching Netflix, watching Paramount, watching all of that. So yeah, I do think it's yeah.
To your point, also with commerce, fascinating, isn't it? I mean, the documentaries I'm seeing about what commerce apps like Temu that like activates part of your brain that is the part of your brain that loves the gambling app. So, or gambling game social casino thing. So, yeah, there is competition. E-commerce apps got smarter. They're using gamification. We always said they would, and now they are. So, that's part of it as well. I want to wrap up with something. We started with your team, um, and they commend you because I found it in your LinkedIn profile. They commend you for being, let's get it exactly. Um, you are transparent and you are realistic about KPIs, and they know what to expect. That's part of what makes a great team. What about the actual teamwork itself and the talent there? What does it take now since the ad-mon job description has evolved? What does it take to build that team and to, again, remain transparent, reasonable, and think about KPIs and be very realistic?
Yeah, I mean, I will say it definitely has changed. I've been managing teams over whatever years. But in the beginning, I was only focusing on I have this job description. I'm gonna hire this exact person to do this job. That's how it's been for the first, I'll say, 10 years of mine when I was managing people. But
Mm-hmm.
now I guess I have to change along with the industry, along with the where we are this time. So how it's
Yeah.
changing is I mean, we had waterfall before, but now we don't. So now our job description for our team has changed as well. What that means is gonna continue to change. So instead of looking for the right or specific person for this job, I I am more focused on finding the right people.
Hmm.
If we find the right people, I think I am pivoting the work around them. Maybe they're stronger in this one thing, so maybe we can focus on that versus all other things that I wanted to focus on.
Hmm.
Other thing is there's always so much things to do on our day to day. So I cannot say I want this one person to do this 20 things and they're gonna do this perfectly because I need that person. It will never work that way. So I'll say focus on people, focus on their talent, make them grow. I strongly believe in candid feedback. So this can be this go good or bad,
That's it.
but I believe in
Transparent.
great
Yes.
feedback.
Yes.
Candid feedback. So I want to make sure this new hire or this teammate grows within the company, without the I mean outside of the company as well. I support either way. I just want more and more educated people within this industry. So I want to make sure
Mm.
that doesn't matter if they're not within the company in the future. I want to make sure this person grows. So I'll say I'm focusing more of their talent, their what they're strong in.
Building more around that because those talents are going to be sort of the timeless part of the team. If you're curious, that's what I always hear: curious, eager to learn, willing to adapt. These are things you want to look for. This is not a job where you come and you do your job. It's certainly not what you expected. You've been here. How long have you been in this, by the way, Kelly? What is it?
This industry,
Yeah.
I'll say, I keep saying 10 years, but I think it's like 14, 13,
Oh, it's a
somewhere around there.
little longer
Yeah,
because I know you
yeah,
for a while as well. So you have to evolve, you
yeah.
have to grow. So we want to wrap it up. I could chat for quite a while. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look for you at some event and hang out with you at some party. But in the meantime, we have to bring this to a close. Um, and we always ask our guests the same thing. In between the streaming and the shopping and all the rest of it, we ask your favorite game you're currently playing, favorite game of all time.
Oh, that is hard. Okay.
Yeah,
To start with, I have more than 20 games on my phone. I'm sure
okay.
everyone does. And I try to give everyone love. But two games I cannot, delete from my phone that I continue to come back every night or during the day. Maybe I love Candy Crush. I'm going back there. I play it every single day. I cannot get over it. I
Classic.
mean, all the new games,
Yeah.
yeah, all the new games I downloaded and play, but my OG heart is going back to the Candy Crush. And the next thing is, I think I do like the puzzle is Royal Match. I cannot
Oh,
stop playing Royal Match. So I am there as well. Yeah.
see, all of that habit forming loop and all that stuff that worked. That worked because it is
Yeah.
true. I mean, I go back to them too. You want to try other new things, but there is something that it works. They nailed it. They nailed
Yeah.
the addictive habit forming loop. And I'd love to come back to you again sometime, Kelly, as well. It has been
Of
delightful.
course.
It's great to just chat candidly about what your job is, what you're doing, and how you're making it in this role because it is going to be so important going forward. I mean, I'll ask you as a closing question, um, what would you like to say is the mark that ad-mon can leave on a studio? To some in our audience who are like, okay, I listened to this, I heard it's super important, but they don't quite always appreciate the value that you add. So what would you say to them?
I'm not really sure because I have so many things I want to say. So just to kind of sum it down to one, I'll say just always kind of focus on user. I know as an admin, we like to make money. We like to, try to get everything, every cent out of everyone. But focus on user, focus on people, then it will all come back to you. Or you will all kind of circle back. So don't forget that aspect, because I know we always kind of look for other, there's so much stuff to do. There's so much new stuff, but always think about, would it be beneficial for a user? Would user want it? Or is it something that I wanted personally? So always kind of think about that in mind, is even after 13, 14 years, that's something I have always have in my mind is, would user want this or would they not like it? So kind of think about that. I will say that's the one major thing.
That's it. That's the golden rule, and that's the thread that runs through your career and many, many more opportunities and positions and things on the horizon, Kelly, because you're just getting started. It's a delight to have you. Thank you again.
As always, it was great seeing you, Peggy, and I would love to see you more and more.
This show is all about how to do your job better, how to make an amazing game, how to market it, and you have a say. So if you have a story or know someone we need to shine a light on, then we would love to hear from you.
We want to hear from you. We want to reflect the reality of the mobile games market in all its wonderful complexity and strangeness. So if you have any suggestions for us, if you have any feedback for us, you can always get in touch. You can email us at podcast@PocketGamer.biz. You can find us on Twitter @PGBiz, and you can reach out to us through the PocketGamer.biz website. If you're interested in listening to all of our podcasts, you can find them at PocketGamer.biz/podcast, and we would love to hear your thoughts on future shows.
And we've got you covered on all the major platforms, so subscribe to the audio podcast, as Brian said. Look for us on YouTube. If you want to read it, hey, you can do that too, because we have a companion post for you as well on the PocketGamer.biz website.
Tune in again for the next edition of the PocketGamer.biz podcast, and we look forward to speaking to you in the near future.